Hello everybody and welcome to Parks Bros. It's Drew here, and for day 4 of Listmas 2024, we're going to be talking about my top 10 defunct attractions that I was able to experience before they went away. Now, I will admit there's not too many of these rides out there. I think I counted in total about 35, and that's even including a bunch of re-themed rides. So you won't see anything of that sort on this list. So no Jurassic Park because it became Jurassic World, or Tower of Terror becoming Guardians of the Galaxy. In my mind, those are the same rides overall, even if they have different theming or different ride programming. So without waiting any longer, let's head to my number 10, Wild Arctic at SeaWorld San Diego. Now, I can't lie, I only remember ever riding this one time. It was a set of simulator attractions that would take you up into the wild Arctic and take you through the perils of that wild Arctic. There were moments where you'd go underwater, dive through chasms, or end up getting stuck in a windstorm. Even though I only remember ever riding this ride once, it did leave a lasting impact and paved the way for something I think is honestly a lot better in Arctic Rescue. But I'm glad to say I was there on its closing day and that I got to really experience it. Number 9 is actually at the same park and only lasted a handful of years. This is Tidal Twister. I still can't believe I was there for Media Day, which I'm still so thankful to say I was there thanks to the park. And I legitimately think I was probably within the top 50 people all time with the most rides. Like, legitimately. Just because this ride was closed more than open, unfortunately, and I somehow managed to be there on a lot of its open days. I had over 20 rides under my belt on this attraction, and to be honest, a lot of people were really hating on this ride for the longest time, but I actually quite enjoyed it. It wasn't the most comfortable thing in the world, obviously, but when it was running well, you'd get some amazing hang time and a great pop of airtime too. And usually it didn't have a wait either, so that just made it a lot easier to re-ride too. But it's wild to think I was covering the construction of this ride when it was first built, and it's already gone. Now, something else I remember the construction process for, but was not quite on YouTube yet, as it didn't exist, was Ladybug Boogie in the Bugs Land in California Adventure. This was realistically a better teacups ride. It had bigger seats, more lateral forces, and it felt faster, and there was that cool dynamic of it being in a figure 8. Oh yeah, and it was kind of tucked away in a corner and never had a line. It had some really great tunes, a really fun atmosphere about it, with Francis the Ladybug yelling at you the entire time. This is a ride that I miss a lot, believe it or not, even as a full-grown adult now. And even though it was a little tacky for a Disney park, it was still so memorable. Next up is a ride I only got to take on once, and that was Sand Serpent at Busch Gardens, Tampa. This just recently closed in the last couple of years to make way for a brand new ride named Phoenix Rising, which I'll have to check out next time I'm at the park. But this, in all reality, was my favorite Wild Mouse coaster I've ever been on, with maybe the exception of Psycho Mouse at California's Great America. This mock version of the ride just felt relentless. There was no trim brakes, constant lateral forces, and even a little bit of airtime at the end. It was super fun. I'm glad I got my one experience on it on video too. It's really unfortunate that this ride went away, but I understand it. It was aging and also was already at its second or third park in its lifetime, with the promise of a Phoenix Rising in its place. Next up is something you probably didn't expect, and that is, unfortunately, the dark ride at Castle Park. I can't remember exactly what the name of it is currently while I'm recording this, but realistically, it was Boo Blasters at a small family fun center. And even better than most of the Boo Blasters out there, at least it felt like, there was a spiral lift hill at part of the ride. Animatronics working all around with lots of UV and lots of interactive moments when you were trying to shoot the ghosts for a high score. This genuinely was the best ride at the park, at least while I was there. And it's truly a shame that this ride has gone the wayside. And I honestly think not enough people knew about it because it was kind of tucked away in the back corner of the arcade where most people didn't even go in the first place. But then again, there was a big advertisement for the ride right on the outside of the arcade too, so maybe people just didn't realize exactly what it was and what they were missing out on. Now, number 5 is something that everybody recognized from over a mile away, and that is Top Thrill Dragster, another ride I only got one experience on. I think it was in the 3rd row, and I was very, very lucky to even get to experience this ride at all, as we literally almost missed our flight to be able to ride it the one time, because it was closed for 3.5 months before we got there and opened in our last hours of being at Cedar Point for the first time. And then, of course, unfortunately, it did close forever before we made it back, and before Top Thrill 2 opened for 5 days and then closed again. We'll see about next year. This ride was super memorable for, of course, the moments leading up to it, especially us waiting over 4 hours, just taking in the anticipation, and then finally getting to ride it after quite a lengthy wait, and then immediately running out of the park to get in the car and make sure we get to the airport in time. Unfortunately, because this ride was so incredibly short, I don't really remember it as well as I probably should. But I do remember going 120 was pretty insane, and especially that way down was my favorite part for sure. I just wish I got another experience on it, preferably in the front row. Number 4 is something I got to ride in just about every seat, and that was Heimlich's Choo Choo Train. Yeah, that's right, I'm bringing that into this list. It was such a charming kid and family friendly ride that had some not great jokes realistically, but they were fun, they'd get a chuckle out of you, and it had some really cool scenery that really shrunk you down to the size of a bug. Going beneath a watermelon slice, going into the graham cracker box was always the best smelling part of your Disney vacation, and my only real downside with the ride was it did seem pretty short. But it got through people very quickly, so there was never really that long of a line, too. And honestly, my favorite part about this ride was just sitting next to it, next to that watermelon slice especially, just because it was such a relaxing sound to hear in the background. It was a little cooler, too, because there was some mist coming out. It's just something I miss quite a lot about that version of DCA at this point. And I'll detail that because I got to finally experience Avengers Campus a couple months ago. That video should be coming out next year. And number 3 is back at Busch Gardens Tampa. This is a ride that kind of closed without much fervor or time. It's Scorpion at Busch Gardens Tampa. Their Schwarzkopf single looping sit-down coaster. This ride was super powerful. It had multiple moments of around 5 Gs positively. So good. The first drop was really great too, and while the loop was really the star of the ride, I think those multiple helixes were unbelievable. And unfortunately, since I did only get one ride on it, I am kind of sad that I didn't get to check out other seats, but I'm glad I got a video of myself on it too, just for the memory. This unfortunately is kind of a dying breed, as we'll be talking about another one of its sister rides in just a moment, and it really makes me sad that Anton's masterclass in coaster designing is slowly coming to a close. Because at number 2, we have Montezuma's Revenge at Knott's Berry Farm. This was kind of a revolution that revolution necessarily wasn't, as this ride went forwards and backwards through its 5G loop, with a launch that would bring you up to 55 miles an hour using a flywheel launch system, which I believe it was either the first or second flywheel launch in the world. And it truly made that launch feel unlike any other that I've experienced thus far, with the closest being on Pony Express. But the thing is, with that ride, the seating position makes it a little odd. But Montezuma is one of those rides that I am going to be missing dearly, and I know the replacement should be on the horizon within the next year, at least that's what they've announced. But I know it'll never quite feel like the original or sound like the original too. That sound was just so iconic around the park. But heck, I think you know my love for this ride, as I even have my logo based off of it realistically. But at number 1, we have another classic that was supposed to be replaced and actually has successfully been replaced at the other end of the park. This is Fire in the Hole at Silver Dollar City. This is a weird one. It's a roller coaster / dark ride with more of the emphasis on it being a dark ride. But man, oh man, it was quirky, it was fun, it was totally the ride you have in mind when you think classic theme park in the 60s and 70s, with a handful of outdated jokes, not great props, but honestly just a lot of heart that was put into the ride itself. That's without mentioning that the actual ride system was really quirky and gave you some unexpected moments all around. I won't spoil it because the new version is supposedly very, very similar, but I miss this ride so much. I only got to ride it a good 10 times or so, but it still didn't feel like enough when we were at the park. And hopefully I can check out the replacement within the next year or two. But there you have it, my top 10 defunct rides that I miss so dearly. What rides do you miss that you got to experience? Let me know down in the comments. I would very much appreciate it. And I'd also appreciate if you click that subscribe button if you haven't yet and you're enjoying these Listmas videos. With that all said, though, I wanted to say thank you all so much for watching. And until tomorrow, we'll see you on the next ride.